Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show podcast. As always on Tuesdays, we are joined by the Prince of Twitter, the Regent of RedState.com. There he is, His Majesty's smiling face itself, Andrew Malcolm, at AH Malcolm on Twitter.
All these years, and I have to chuckle. I love it, but I have to chuckle over Prince of Twitter. People on Twitter have actually called me that because of you.
I'm an influencer, man. I don't know what to tell you.
That's right. That's right.
You got bald heads and golf shirts all over America just because of me.
Ed, you're so funny.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Well, we like to talk a little bit about media and these things and elections and international affairs. We're going to get to all of those things because you've got a couple of great posts up over at redstate.com in the VIP section. We're going to whet your appetites, folks, for Red State's VIP section by talking a little bit about Andrew's columns. But I want to start with the media because this weekend, I try to take the weekends off now, Andrew. I really do. I mean, I try to take the weekends off just to maintain some semblance of sanity.
Yeah.
But I did see this from NPR. I think I saw it on Saturday. And just, I mean, this was sort of the stunning thing about transgender competition in sports. And this is a big topic. We write about it a lot, the whole Leah Thomas thing. And we talk about how it really is sort of nihilistic to women in sports because it's basically squeezing women out of competition. Because biologically speaking, there's a significant difference between men and women when it comes to sports. And we used to know that. It wasn't even a dispute, right? I wonder, I know I'm old enough. I know you're old enough. I'm wondering how many of our viewers are old enough to remember the big controversy over the East German women's Olympic team.
Yeah.
Came out looking like slightly smaller versions of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Was it 1976, 1980 or 1984? And, years later it came out, they'd been injecting these women up with testosterone. But it wasn't because they wanted the women competing against men. It was because they wanted to give the women an advantage against other women in sports. I guess their Olympic motto was better living through chemistry.
Yeah.
And, it had to be before 1984's Olympics. And I'll tell you why. Because 1984 was the year that Top Secret came out, the movie Top Secret with Val Kilmer, which is hilarious. It was made by the same guys that made Airplane, right? The Zucker brothers and Jim Abrams. And near the beginning, it was set in East Germany, right? It's supposed to be this East Germany where the Nazis are coming back and stuff like that. It's a hilarious movie. It's a send up of all sorts of war movies and stuff like that. It's great. If you've never seen it, you should watch it. But near the beginning of the movie, they have the East German women's team come out onto a podium, and it is all men, male bodybuilders with women's wigs on, marching up to the podium. That used to be a joke. Unfortunately, these days it's not anymore. Anyway, NPR writes up this post about the fact that I think it's the World Athletics Council, which is based in Europe, has decided that they're going to temporarily put a moratorium on allowing transgenders to compete in women's competitions. And this is men supposedly transgendering into women because of the unfair competitive advantage that they have as biological males.
Do you think?
This is NPR's tweet and their headline about this, right? The International Governing Body for Track and Field will ban trans women athletes from elite women's competitions, citing a priority for fairness over inclusion, despite limited scientific research involving elite trans athletes. You don't need elite trans athletes. You don't need to scientifically determine where elite trans athletes land. All you have to do is look at about a century's worth of data of world records and competitions in the same sports between men and between women to determine this. I mean, it really, it doesn't, Andrew, I'm doing most of the talking here. I really should let you get
No,
over it.
no. I just, it's so enjoyable. Don't stop.
But as we were discussing right before we started recording this, I said this is sort of like a who you going to believe, me or your lying eyes approach to news reporting, because I, I mean, it's not just demonstrable. It's a fact that
Limited
biological.
scientific evidence. Well, there's no evidence before 1800, Ed.
Yeah, something must have happened in 1800. Maybe it's the fluoride in the water. That's always good for a conspiracy theory or two, right? Fluoride in the water. But you know, the very fact that we have men's and women's competitions is because there's a biological difference between males and females, and that males are stronger, they have more stamina. Adult males I'm talking about. If you're talking about prepubescent children, you can probably put them in competition with each other, and they'll probably compete fairly equally. In fact, depending on when you hit it, the girls might outperform the boys at certain points. But once they both hit puberty, there becomes a very large difference between men's and women's athletic capabilities. And it's not just, this isn't just, it's a religious talk. I mean, this is basic human biology. It's so basic that
it's not anecdotal. Yeah, it's not anecdotal.
No, I mean, it's so NPR tried to correct this today and said, correction, an earlier tweet incorrectly stated that there's limited scientific evidence of physical advantage. Existing research shows that higher levels of testosterone do impact athletic performance. Well, it's more than just the elevated levels of testosterone, first off. But then they add, but there's limited research involving elite trans athletes in competition. Well, that's because A, we haven't been letting them do it for very long, and B, to the extent that they've been doing it, they have been crowding women out of these competitions, because you've got second-rate male athletes who are scoring records, and I use this term advisedly, in women's competition. Leah Thomas is just one example of this. I don't beat up on Leah Thomas all day long, but that's just one example of this. This is a guy who was swimming for the men's team and wasn't cutting it, decided that he was a transgender, and started competing against the women, and started breaking all the records in the conference, started winning everything by several lengths. And and the women in these competitions were being pressured to say nothing, even when Leah Thomas was dangling his genitalia in the dressing room, that they insisted that he needed to have access to the women's dressing room. And he was just letting it all hang out. And,
I mean, this is like the Airplane movie. It's just, and the thing is, it's real. I mean, it's beyond belief.
It really is beyond belief. I wish that this was satire. It really should be satire. It used to be satire. When they did Top Secret, it was satire.
Well, wasn't there the Red State had a story yesterday that be careful of your parodies or your satire, because there were 100 Babylon Bee stories that had actually happened.
Yeah. I mean, what today's Babylon Bee is tomorrow's actual headline. And by the way, the tweet that I read off was actually the rewrite of their original tweet. Their original tweet was citing a priority for fairness over inclusion despite limited scientific evidence of physical advantage. Now, that was their original tweet, which I believe that they deleted. Yep, they deleted it. Twitchy has it. God bless Twitchy. But the idea that that you can just simply declare yourself a woman, and therefore it unlocks the women's category for competition, is absurd. I mean, it is sort of this unreal thing. I mean, it wasn't just Top Secret. In Life of Brian, The movie Life of Brian, Monty
Oh,
Python's.
wasn't that the argument in the
Yeah,
stands?
yeah.
The argument in the stands over whether Reggie could have a baby. Well,
You
no,
don't
he can't. He can't. But we're going to protest for his right to want to have a baby.
right. Yeah. You don't have a womb, Reggie. I mean, that was satire 50 years or 40, was it 43 years ago? That was satire. 44 years ago, that was satire. And now it's
I know.
reality.
It's
But,
so
so, I mean, we can talk about all of the different people who are involved in this, but NPR is supposed to be a news agency, right? To write that there's limited scientific evidence of physical advantage is nonsense. Not, there's
yeah. How did that get through editors? Well, maybe on the weekend they had the B team.
Well, actually, this was posted on Friday. I didn't see it until Saturday, but it was posted on Friday. And so, I mean, because it's dated March 24th. Because it's been deleted, I can't see what time it was posted. But I'm gonna guess in the afternoon or the evening.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah,
Editorial scrutiny was lower.
The A team left early for the weekend, like Joe Biden.
Oh my gosh! I mean, I mean, I don't even know what to say to this. So I just took a look at the, track and field is what they were looking at. So I took a look at the track and field results from last year's World Championships, right? Which is the 2022 World Track and Field Championships, and compared the men's and women's numbers. I mean, and it's as simple as this. You can do this with any sort of competition where men and women are competing at the same event, but separately, right? So the 100-meter dash, I call it the sprint. I probably should change it to dash. The 100-meter dash, Florence Griffith Joyner set the world's record in 1988, right? Which was for women, which is 10.49 seconds. That wouldn't have even finished 8th in the men's race. And just that year, it wouldn't have even finished in the top in the finals. She wouldn't have gotten into the finals in the men's category with that number. And that's her fastest race ever. That's the best she ever ran, right? At least in their competition, right? The shot put, the winner in the women's thing, Chase Ely, put her shot. I don't know what, threw her shot, slung her shot, yeah. put her shot, right? 20.49 meters, which is, probably about 18.49 meters better than I could do. So that's a pretty decent, that's pretty impressive. The last place finisher among men in the finals was 20.93 meters, right? So half a meter. The last place finisher in the men's finals was half a meter longer than Chase Ely's thing. And you can go through this over and over and over again, and you find out that adult men outperform women in speed, stamina, because I got marathon numbers in there as well, strength, because they have a biological advantage. Nature has built a biological advantage for these things into men. Now, that doesn't mean that women's sports is somehow useless. In fact, I think it's just as useful as men's sports, as long as you let the women compete against other women, right?
Yeah, exactly. I found with in my family that we had 3 boys and 1 girl that it was important for them to participate in sports.
Absolutely.
It just in terms of personal development, because they get the self-confidence, they get the sharing, they get losing, which often happens in life. Yeah. Handling losses, which I didn't do that well in high school. They get all kinds of experiences that they never would get in the classroom. And I often tell the story about my 3 boys, and we had a rule that they always had to be in sports. Something, I don't care what it was, they had to be doing something. One semester in high school, I allowed one of the boys to not have a sport because he'd been doing it very intensely, and he asked for a quarter off. His grades fell in that one semester. So, being busy is good.
Right.
And also keeps you from getting involved in trouble that idle hands find. So I'm delighted that there's women's and girls sports. My granddaughters are in them and participating actively, in some cases more than the grandson. So it's wonderful. But yeah, right. But it has to be equal competition. This is like the emperor has no clothes on. And the little kid goes, wait, he doesn't have any clothes on.
Right.
Shh, shh, shh. No, you can't say that. Why not? I just, and I don't think it's just because I'm old. It's because there's common sense involved in this.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the position that women athletes are being put in now, is trying to say that they're, that they're, these guys don't have any clothes on, so to speak, as women. They're not women.
Yeah.
They belong in women's competition because they're not women, they're men. And you've got all sorts of people, apparently including NPR now, to shut the hell up and get on board with, what they see as fairness. And this is, yeah, go ahead.
But you don't have a womb, Reggie.
But you don't have a womb. And there is this sort of air of unreality that attends all of this, right?
Yes.
I mean, it really is. The air of unreality is unmistakable about this, because people are being asked to deny what is very clearly, obviously, and objectively true, which is that biological males have advantages over females when it comes to competition. And you'll hear, oh, well, Serena could have beaten most of the men on the tennis circuit, which is actually not true. And people will tell you that as good as Serena Williams still is. I mean, I think she's retired now, but I mean, very powerful. She competed against women and rose to very quickly to the top and stayed there. Venus, her sister, was almost equally as good. It's because that they were competing against other women. If they had competed with men of roughly the same age and status within the sport, they would have gotten their clocks cleaned. And I remember this was a big debate about 5 years ago. Somebody actually made the horrific sin of actually verbalizing what's very clearly true, right? Is that if they were forced to compete against men, they wouldn't have been nearly as successful. And all of a sudden it's, oh, well, it's misogyny. And the reason why is because somebody said that Serena Williams was the greatest tennis player of all time, regardless of gender, which was, it's not true. She's the most successful women's player. And I'd say that's true. So I remember when this was being argued, people were talking about, do you remember remember that match between Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs? And they said, well, Billie Jean King beat Bobby Riggs. Well, yeah, Bobby Riggs was about 20 years older than Billie Jean King was at the time. And he had just got done beating Margaret Court prior to that, which is the reason why Billie Jean King challenged him, or he challenged her and she decided to accept it, because he was, he was a pot.
It's showbiz. It's showbiz.
It was showbiz, and Billie Jean King was really annoyed by it. But she was smart. She ran him off the court, basically. She made him run all over the place, and he was too old to do that. I think he was like 55 years old at the time, and she was in her 20s. And I mean, 55-year-old guys, they tend to tire out. And some of them are in better shape than others, but Bobby Riggs, I don't think, was really one of those guys in terms of athletes. And she tired him out, which is smart. And she beat him, which is fine. But he still had biological advantages that were built into that. She overcame them. But that doesn't mean that women who are stacked up against men of the same competitive age and status and dedication can compete against them. And we recognize that. It's the reason why we have the LPGA. It's the reason why we have the Women's Tennis Association. It's the reason why track and field has separate categories for men and women. Is that
it's the reason, because you don't have a female partner here, because she'd talk me off the stage.
Well, maybe I asked and nobody would take me up on it. Well, I no comment on that one, Andrew. No comment on that one. But we're talking about athletics, right? We're not talking about dignity of person. We're not talking about intelligence. I mean,
no, nothing. It's just the sports.
Physical. There are physical, biological advantages for men when it comes to sport competition. So, I mean,
so your post will be up by the time this one is.
Yeah, I had to vent. Let's talk about your stuff, because your stuff is more fun. But I wanted to point out that thing with NPR.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right, so let's get into your VIP column. We'll get into Malcolm on the right too, but your VIP column this week is media find Joe Biden in fine shape for a 24 run. Trump, on the other hand, ... Now, Trump was out in my neck of the woods.
Yes.
And I'm happy to say that I avoided that. First off, because it was the weekend, I had other things going on. Saturday in particular was extremely busy for me. But I mean, I'm familiar with that area where he was at. It's outside of town. It's the airport is a ways outside of town. Not hugely far, but a ways outside of town. And there's like 2 roads to get in and out of that place. And that's it. And they're not big, massive freeways. And I'm thinking to myself, okay,
What's a nightmare? Yeah.
You're going to need to leave at 8:00 in the morning just to get into that place, probably, or 9:00 in the morning. Because I think the rally started at 2. Trump didn't show up until later, but I think the rally started at 2.
Yeah, he usually has several keynote speakers.
Yeah, Ted Nugent, I think, kicked it off. I was following it on Twitter to the extent that I could, but it would probably take until about 9:00 at night to get out of there after it, because they had, I would say, a few thousand people out there.
Well, it's a zoo. No, those things are zoos.
Yeah,
and you have to go for the experience, and it can be a powerful experience. That many people in one place with a common interest and a common enthusiasm, and a skilled rallier like Trump. It's it's not unlike going to a pro football game with everybody on your side liking your team. It's
right.
I took my son when he was little. We went to a Cleveland Browns game. You'll be surprised, in Buffalo, and in the huge parking lot, it was an exhibition game. In the parking lot, there was a van with Cleveland Browns flags. It was all painted orange and brown and everything. And so my son just burst away and ran over there, and they were high-fiving and all that stuff through their common affection for a particular team and colors and what have you. So that's a good experience. Forget who it is. I don't think there would be the same enthusiasm over Joe Biden appearing on stage. But there probably is among Democrats an enthusiasm about being in the presence of a president. So yeah, that seems to be what Trump has going for him. The polls show he's still pretty strong. Joe Biden, he's got so many problems. And one of the points of the column on Sunday was the steady delays in him announcing his candidacy. And he's been very careful and to say that it's his intent to run.
Right. That's just FEC. That's just, FEC.
Yeah. No, he'd have certain rules. That's what one of the puzzling things about Trump announcing last fall was that there are certain rules that come into play about what you can do with your money and how you can get it. And that limited him well, it's historically soon for announcing a candidacy.
Right.
Um, so there are some reasons for that, but I was speculating that Biden may be stretching this out. It's hurting his party. I don't know that you said here on this show that you don't think he really will run in the end, and I'm coming around to thinking that they go right off into the sunset with great honors for all of his legislative achievements. I don't know how you craft that, given his mental frailty.
Yeah,
And it's almost every event he's pulling this off. Did you see what he last week? He was talking about his wife in this talking to women's group, talking about his wife leaving notes on his mirror in the morning, and one of them said, "Stop trying to make me love you."
What?
What? Yeah, I mean, it's first of all, if it's true, which a lot of what Biden says are not true,
Right,
but
yeah.
if it's true, why say it? I mean, I know he's older and he's lost a filter that some men do at that age, but geez, to share something like that, it's just you cringe. That's what you do. You wince. I say, oh, wow. And she seems to be all in it, or says she is all in it for him to run. But I don't know. You said you saw a poll that they don't know what else to run, so they may be stuck with him because there's no one else realistically who could be a viable candidate. That Kamala wouldn't work.
Yeah, I mean, this Monmouth poll is kind of interesting because it sort of backs up your premise. 44% of Democrats surveyed by Monmouth would prefer somebody else other than Joe Biden to run. Only 25% would prefer Joe Biden over somebody else, but they don't have any idea of who that somebody else would be.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Don't know. I mean, they were asked, right?
Yeah.
51% of the people who said that they wanted somebody else to run, 51% said they didn't know. Apparently, anybody else.
Anybody.
And then it gets broken down. Kamala Harris, 13%, Pete Buttigieg, 6%, Sanders, can't even imagine that, 6%, Elizabeth Warren, 4%, who's, by the way, she's announced that she's running for another term in the Senate. Gavin Newsom, 3%. So Gavin Newsom's coming in below Buttigieg on this. I'm not sure that Gavin Newsom is the backup plan here either. And then there's a few others at 1%, which is basically statistical noise. So he's not generating a lot of enthusiasm among Democrats. I think the only person who can generate enthusiasm among Democrats is Donald Trump, right? He also generates it among Republicans. I mean, again, I heard some people, or I saw some people on social media saying, oh, well, if you take the wider shots of this crowd in Waco, at the Waco airport, it's not as impressive. Well, first off, they're taking wider shots of a very large area, right?
Yeah.
So I don't mind the larger shots to get a better context of the crowd, but let's also get a better context of the venue. It's very large. It's very open out there. There's nothing out there. So you can point a camera.
Well, you can, and people can go, c-span.org. They have all this stuff archived from 1986. Right. So you can go and see it.
Yeah, but also, Waco's not a very big place, right? I think there's 150,000 people tops in Waco itself. It's got a few suburbs. So you can maybe up to about 200,000. So if you get a couple thousand people out there, that's 1% of the overall population showing up for a rally, which, I guess if you wanted to play the equivalency game, if you were in Los Angeles, it'd be the equivalent of having 1 million people show up. Well, that'd be 10%, excuse me, but it'd be 100,000 people showing up. That's the correct, that's the correct math. If it was New York, it'd be, 90,000 or 100,000 people showing in New York City. I mean, 90,000 or 100,000 people showing up. Yeah. That's a pretty decent turnout for a town that size. I mean, it's not that the enthusiasm's not there.
No, the enthusiasm is there. There's no doubt about it. Um, I just it. I have a feeling, and I could be wrong. I've been wrong many times before. That the enthusiasm has waned somewhat. I don't know how you measure it from one rally, but
Well, you don't. I mean, Trump had rallies going all in 2020 and he didn't win the election. Right. I mean,
right, exactly. And he talk about showing the contrast. He's what, 4 years younger than Biden. And in the closing days of the campaign, he was doing 3 and 4 major rallies in different states on the same day. And
right.
Biden was in the basement knocking off by 10:30 in the morning. The cover story was COVID, but uh,
Yeah. I don't think he's going to be running.
really,
He's not going to be running any more energetic of a campaign. And so, I mean, I think if Republicans don't nominate Trump, they nominate somebody else other than Trump to run against Biden. Biden's really in trouble. But Trump will turn out Democrats. I don't think that DeSantis will turn out Democrats the way Trump will turn out Democrats. I
no.
don't think that Glenn Youngkin will turn out Democrats the way that the media is certainly going to try to gin that up
Yeah,
as
sure.
they can.
Well,
But
the polls before the election in 2020, the polls were showing that 71% of Biden voters were voting against Trump. They weren't.
right,
They weren't gaga over Joe Biden. He was, not the ones above,
right,
and uh, and yeah, well, I guess we were talking earlier about the transgender thing and people looking and saying, well, guy's got junk, but he's a girl. Well, no. And Biden, they asked a reporter last week, asked Biden, what about these suspicious activity reports from your own Treasury Department showing $1 million getting distributed among Biden people? And he said, it's not true. And then he walks away.
yeah.
And he gets away with it. Well, I mean, there are advantages to having media on your side. It is true. It's documented. And he refuses to address it, or he says it didn't happen. Well, it did.
Yeah,
So this is one of those, like you said, who's believe your lying eyes or
right,
me?
right,
It's
exactly.
pathetic.
Yeah. Um, all right, and of course, Malcolm on the right. So that's your VIP column. So be sure to check that out, folks. Your Malcolm on the right is also VIP. It's an audio commentary. Putin photo ops that reveal the wrong things. Just briefly, we don't have a whole lot of time, but
Well, we talk about photo ops. Even dictators do photo ops, and Putin went to occupy Ukraine and drove himself in a car with another Russian through Mariupol, and I guess they cleaned the streets of rubble and bodies, at least the ones that he went on, because they destroyed 22,000 people in the shelling just to destroy civil will. But he
right,
was there, and he met some people who allegedly had a new apartment because the Russians are so busily rebuilding what they blew up. And some of the commentators on Twitter noted that the crowds behind Putin at all the events were the same ones. they they bust his security agents around the different spots so they could be cheering for him in the background. So I was just writing about photo ops and how awful they are.
well, I don't know if you saw this. Did you catch the Steven Seagal photo op? You
Yeah,
remember Steven Seagal was a
yeah,
action
yeah.
star? I don't know if you know about this, but he emigrated to Russia several years ago, and now he says he's 1,000,000% Russian, is completely behind Vladimir Putin. So they did a Vladimir Putin Steven Seagal photo op. He's supposedly training Russian forces in martial arts.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, that was
well, I enjoyed the genuine tension in some of his comic book movies, but I don't think I'd be taking political advice. lead from his political leadership.
Yeah, it's
They
Stephen
really
Seagal,
are, and
man.
this is a historic pattern. The Russians, they don't care about individual lives, as I mean, this is a historical fact, as much as some other societies do. So they just throw people
Yeah.
at them, and if you're seen to be retreating, they shoot you. So uh, thousands of Russians have died, just being thrown at them, and the idea is to overwhelm them. They did this on the Eastern Front against the Germans, and eventually it worked. Stalin didn't care about X thousands of people. It's one reason why their casualties are so high.
Yeah.
Right?
It's their World War II doctrine. Yeah. They
Yeah,
they've never updated it.
yeah.
Yep. All right.
So,
Well, we've just about reached the end of things here. Do you have any
well, I
jokes?
know you've been getting your own jokes. I've got a
I don't know
couple.
how many I've got though, but you go first.
I've got a couple here. These are all old. Conan O'Brien, he said, on this day in 1876, Alexander Graham Bell patented the telephone. At the time, Bell predicted, someday my invention will ruin movies for people. And that was before movies were invented. Finally, Conan also, he says, a Maine man was convicted of turning a fitness gym into a brothel. Police became suspicious when people signed up for the gym and then actually went there regularly.
Would do it. Yep, that would definitely do it. All right. I've got some light bulb jokes courtesy of Reader's Digest for you today. I got three.
Okay.
All right. How many telemarketers does it take to change a light bulb?
I don't know.
Only one, but you have to do it while you're eating dinner. Yes. All right. How many narcissists does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Well,
One. The narcissist holds the light bulb while the rest of the world revolves around him.
yeah.
All right. Final question. How many paranoids does it take to change a light bulb?
I don't know.
Who wants to know? All right, those are courtesy of Reader's Digest, rd.com, and they have some funny.
Oh, I like that one. I'm going to use that one. That's a good one.
Who wants to know?
Who wants to know? Yeah.
Well, our VIP members want to know. So if you get a chance, go over to Red State and sign up for VIP over there, or do VIP Gold so you can get all of the VIP stuff at Hot Air as well. And that way you have access to everything that the Prince of Twitter and the region of Red State is doing. Andrew Malcolm, you're off next week.
Yes, I am.
See you in 2 weeks. Enjoy.
Yes, indeed. I will. I will indeed. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. See you later.
See you later, folks. Now that the political infighting is over and the sausage is being made in the House, it's time for Republicans to unite with one cause and fight back against Joe Biden and his radical administration. The GOP has promised to investigate Biden family corruption, the border, big tech censorship collusion, the origins of COVID, the FBI, and intel agencies' attacks on the American people, and more. And it's time to hold them to those promises. Here at Hot Air, we won't let up on holding them accountable. We unapologetically fight back against the radical left and squishy rhinos in Congress who fail the people. We bring you the truth and go to war against Biden's woke communist agenda. But we need your help. By becoming a VIP for hotair.com, you can help us in this battle for our country. Just look at the House Democrats leader, Hakeem Jeffries. He's another divisive radical leftist, and his communist Sesame Street speech proves it. If Republicans don't halt the Biden agenda and conservative media fails to hold them accountable, it could mean the end of our great country. Join us in the fight. Become a Hot Air VIP member or a VIP Gold member today and use the promo code SAVEAMERICA to receive a 40% discount on your membership. Stand with us and fight to save America. We will never give up. And thank you very much.